Hello everyone, Simple Sorcerer here, and today I'd like to go over my runes and masteries with you guys. So this is actually a video that was suggested to me by a viewer, and I very much welcome any suggestions. If you have any suggestions, please leave them to me, and I'll try to fulfill any suggestions I can. So, before I begin, let me just state that these are my personal runes and masteries that work for me, and they may not work for you, but I'll just go over them, and you may copy them if you wish. You absolutely don't have to, but you can use them as sort of a guideline if you want to, and try to experiment a bit and find something that suits yourself. So let's begin, shall we? Now, I actually have 4 rune pages for Veigar, and these are all for specific situations and 2 different playstyles. Now, I have a more defensive playstyle, which I usually stick to, and a more offensive playstyle that I use for certain situations, but my 3 most common rune pages are for the defensive playstyle, where I focus on Q farming. So let's begin, shall we? Now, something I really recommend is to have armor runes for your seals. And now this might seem a bit strange. I mean, if you go mid lane, you might think that the opponent's usually a mage, and why would you use armor? You should get magic resist, right? But the thing is that, like, the armor runes help so much, and you really need to understand this. So basically, most champions you face in mid lane are ranged. They will auto-attack harass you all day long. And this means that the armor runes actually help quite a bit. Even though they deal mostly magic damage, their auto-attacks deal attack damage. So these armor runes help quite a bit. They also help against minion aggro and tower aggro in case you need to tower dive your opponent. So that helps quite a lot. Also, the enemy jungler might be AD, and I mean, late game you'll have to face the enemy AD carry and the eventual top laner as well. So these armor runes are definitely not bad, and please try to understand why these are so good. So I'll try to give my personal thoughts there. You could replace these with mana regen runes. This is something I ran before, and I used to really like it, but I don't really like it anymore. So the thing is, these mana regen runes, if you have 9 mana regen runes for your seals, you get about 2 to 4, maybe 6 extra AP before you have to back, and it's not really that much. Now, if you have these armor runes, you could potentially survive long enough to get those AP anyway. And also, these help you much more later in the game. These mana regen runes, while fairly helpful early on, you still have your passive. You should get mana potions anyway. And I really recommend you rush some sort of mana regen item like Chalice or Morelos if you like that. Personally, I get Chalice, and I really don't feel any need to get these mana regen runes anymore. Now, some of you might think that you could get AP, and of course you can get AP if you want to, but I don't recommend getting AP on your seals. The reason is they are secondary runes. Now, if you compare these to the AP runes for your Glyphs, they give way more AP, and it might not seem much, but 1.2 instead of 0.59, that's quite a lot. It's about twice as much actually, and if you add that 9 times over, I mean, you get a pretty significant difference. So I recommend getting the armor runes for the seals, even though you're a mid lane mage. And this is actually something I do on all my Veigar pages, even the ones against the magic damage champions. So there we go. Alright, now for the marks, I always get the magic pen marks. Now the reason is that magic pen, unlike ability power, helps you way more later in the game. I mean, you will Q farm a lot with Veigar, so you'll get AP anyway, and you will buy a lot of AP items. Whilst Magic Pen you can only get from Void Staff and your Sorcerer's Shoes. Also, these help a lot early game, and they help a lot late game, so they're a lot more balanced, rather than the ability power, which help you more early game before people start getting magic resist. Not really much more to talk about here. I guess I could mention that some people like getting armor and magic pen for Veigar, and I can understand this. I like to auto attack harass a lot too, but personally I really like to just completely blow people up with my combo, and these runes, while helpful in the laning phase to poke people down with auto attacks, they're not really for me. I prefer Q farming in the lane and then just blowing people up with my combos, so these are not really for me. I'll talk a bit more about that later when I go to Masteries, because there's a Mastery that helps you when you auto-attack harass a lot, which I do, once again, but it's not really what I recommend. I recommend getting these magic pen marks. Now, for Glyphs, I actually run cooldown reduction. per level, and this might seem a bit strange to you. A lot of people like getting magic resist glyphs, and this is something I recommend if you don't feel that sure with your champion. A lot of champions really use magic resist glyphs well, and it is something Veigar can use well. I mean, if you are fairly tanky in lane, you'll sustain better, you'll be able to survive more and Q farm more, and I mean, it really helps a late game champion like Veigar, a mid game champion if you want to call him that. But personally, I really like these scaling cooldown reduction per level runes. So the reason it really is because you eventually get so much cooldown reduction from these that, combined with my Masteries, which give you another 5%, and getting a chalice, Athenes, sorry. If you get Athenes and these cooldown reduction runes, and then the Masteries, you will actually have 40% cooldown reduction at level 18. So you don't even need blue buff at level 18, which really helps because people will try to steal your blue buff, and it's not really fun when they do. Also, I actually just really like these runes. Now, they may not help you much early, and they really don't. At level 1, they give you, I don't know, 2% cooldown reduction or something. It's really not much. No, it's not even that. But anyway, they don't give you much, but eventually they will give you a lot, and they scale up over time. So in mid-game, they'll actually help you quite a bit as well. And if you compare that to someone building, like rushing Athenes, you almost have an Athenes when they're like getting the chalice. So it's really good in terms of cooldown reduction, not the other stats, but in terms of the cooldown reduction. So I really like these runes, and they're something I run on almost all my Veigar pages, and a lot of other pages as well. I really recommend these runes. They may not fit your playstyle, but I think you should try them out and see what you think about them. So, for my Glyphs, my Quintessences, I use movement speed. Now, usually, I mean, back in the day, I used to use scaling AP for my Quintessences, and this is something I really used to like, but actually it's not that hard to Q farm anymore with Veigar, thanks to the improved Q, which gets you to Q farm every time if you use this properly. And I mean, yeah, people will try to deny it, and they often will early game, but late game you can Q farm really fast, and these movement speed runes help you in so many ways. So Veigar doesn't have an escape spell. This means that you really need to get movement speed, and this is actually something that I really follow myself, because I usually rush, or almost always start with boots and pots, which is something most people don't do on Veigar. Most people get Doran's Ring, and that's something I don't really disagree with it. I don't have anything against it. People have different playstyles, and I do rush Doran's Ring in my more offensive playstyle, but in my more common playstyle, which I use in almost all my games, I actually rush boots. I start with boots, and these movement speed quints help me even more. So with boots and movement speed quints, you'll be pretty fast even at level 1, and you'll be able to dodge a lot of skill shots. You will also be able to escape a lot of ganks that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. And around level 3, if you have your jungle available, you can actually catch your enemy with these movement speed quints and land a good stun if you manage to. I mean, it's pretty tricky, but without these you wouldn't really be able to force that much pressure on your opponent. With these you can do quite a lot if you know how to do it, and it's something you learn over time. So I think that's it for this rune page. This is my rune page that I use for about 90 to 95% of my games. So this is my really my main rune page. The other two that follow are sort of variations on this, which I'll go over now. So this is my safe sorcerer page rather than the sinful sorcerer page, and this page is more balanced for the defensive stats. Now, instead of the movement speed quints, I actually have magic resist quints here. This is a page that I usually use for very difficult lanes against champions like LeBlanc, for instance, maybe Cassiopeia, which people have played a lot lately. Perhaps Seraph, although you could dodge a lot of Seraph's skill shots, so I don't really see it that important for Xerath. These movement speed quints, you have to remember, they help you dodge skill shots, so if you can actually dodge your opponent's skill shots and dodge damage that way, these aren't as helpful. But against the champions like LeBlanc, for instance, or Annie, who you can't really dodge her spells in any way, these help quite a lot, and these will make you a lot more tanky early game and let you survive until you can actually back and get a few items. So I really recommend getting these for the more difficult lanes. Now, my third page is Scared Sorcerer, and yeah, it's a pretty funny name, I guess, but this is a page I usually only take when I'm scared, so there you go. These actually use armor quints, which these are really primarily used against double AD comps. For example, if the enemy has Zed or Talon mid lane and Irelia or Riven or Renekton top lane, these help quite a bit. So that way you will have armor against all three 80 damage sources. Now, the enemy might have like a Corki 80 carry, which deals mostly magic damage, but for the most part, these will help quite a lot in those against those double 80 comps. And these actually are really helpful against just Zed and Talon in general. Like if you're against a Zed and Talon and you're not really sure how to deal with the matchup, which at times I have very large difficulty with myself, I really recommend getting a bit more armor, and this will actually give you 22 armor at level 1, so that's quite a lot. Combine that with a cloth armor, which you can actually start with cloth armor, 3 pots and 2 mana pots. That's something I do sometimes against Zed and Talon and the likes, and it makes you really tanky early game, so they won't really be able to kill you unless you make a really big mistake. So getting these runes, getting cloth armor, playing a bit safe until you can actually start dealing damage back to them, and you shouldn't be able to screw up that badly as long as you stay behind the minions and play safe. So this is a good way to avoid those snowbally Zeds, which we all really know and hate, so there you go. Now my 4th rune page is actually called Sinister Sorcerer, and this page is essentially the same as my Sinful Sorcerer page, but I replaced the glyphs with ability power. Now these ability power glyphs, compared to the ability power seals, as I mentioned before, are actually way stronger, and these are way more worth. You can actually see that the primary rather than the secondary ones on the seals. So getting these will let you put a lot more pressure early game. If you get this and you can start with Doran's Ring and you bring Ignite to the lane, you can actually force a lot of pressure early game. As long as your opponent isn't standing behind minions too much, because then it's a bit troublesome. But if you are good at like positioning yourself and poking with your Q, these runes combined with Doran's Ring can really help put some pressure in lane, and it's something I recommend against champions who you don't really feel that threatened by. If you're against another champion who likes to farm up, like Kassadin for example, this could be a really good page, because Kassadin will try to poke you with his Q and get shield back, but if you have this page you can pop his shield and deal damage to him rather than just popping his shield, which really kind of sucks. So this is something I recommend if you feel a bit more safe and you want to go aggressive. Otherwise, this is my primary rune page, which is a lot better late game, but this is a lot more early game oriented. Now let's go on to Masteries. So Masteries, I only have one page for Veigar, because I only really use one. There's only really one setup that I really like for Veigar here. So let's go over them, okay? So I actually have points in Sorcery, Mental Force, Arcane Mastery, and Archmage. Now these give me as much AP and cooldown reduction as possible. Like this gives me 5% cooldown reduction, which I mentioned before, and combine this with my rune pages, which most of them have these scaling cooldown reduction runes. They give me 20% cooldown reduction at level 18 without any items. So with this mastery page, my usual rune page, sorry, and Athene's, this gives me 40% cooldown reduction, which is really helpful. Now I also have paid. Wow, what am I saying? Jesus, calm down. Okay, Armor and Magic Pen. Now there's no real alternative to this in my opinion. I really wish there was a pure Magic Pen or a pure Armor Pen here, because then I could just take pure Magic Pen, which I actually would rather have, but this is really what you have to deal with, and it's really good for Veigar anyway. You poke a lot with auto attacks, so this can really help to deal extra damage, and it's something everyone should have on their Veigar pages in my opinion. Finally, 3% increased damage, nothing really to say about that. A bit more interestingly, I have points in Butcher and Feast. Now this is something I really recommend, since you'll be Q farming a lot with Veigar. You really want to have as much power as possible for those Q farms so you don't miss them. Especially early on, it can be a bit troubling landing the Q farms, because the minion will drop really low HP and your Q might not hit them in time, or another minion might kill them before your Q lands. So having this extra damage to minions really helps to secure some extra AP and make sure you get going on Q farming. The Feast is even more important. Now this gives you 3 health and 1 mana for every last hit. And this might not seem like much, but since you're Q farming 2 minions at a time most of the time, this will help you quite a bit. And you should be focusing on Q farming minions if you play the way I do. You could also play the more offensive style, but preferably I Q farm a lot of minions, so I really recommend getting these Masteries. They really help you sustain a lane. After that we have Executioner, which gives you more damage against champions who have really low HP. And, well, yeah, you want to nuke people, so it helps last hitting people, essentially. And finally, a lot of people would pick Dangerous Game. Now, this is a very helpful mastery. It lets you survive a lot of close encounters. But personally, I really like Arcane Blade. And now, what's going on with my mouse? It keeps slipping. Okay. Arcane Blade, it's really, really good on Veigar. So, 5% of your ability power converted to bonus magic damage on your auto attacks. This might not seem like much early game, and it's not. But, since you're Q farming, you're building more and more AP, eventually you can have around 1000 to 1300 AP on Veigar. And this will actually give you a shit ton of extra damage, so, excuse my language, should be trying to be a bit more professional, but yeah, this will give you a lot more damage on Veigar with the auto attacks. So 5% extra damage, this will actually give you around 50 to 70 extra damage on your auto attacks late game, and that's quite a lot. You will actually deal almost as much damage as an AD carry with your auto attacks. So if you combine this with a Sheen especially, or a Lich Bane, that's an insane amount of damage, so it's a really fun thing to do, and I recommend getting this even if you don't run Sheen, because it's so good. Also, Veigar is really good for killing towers late game and inhibs because of the bonus damage from AP that's converted into killing enemy turrets and inhibs essentially. So this is something that really helps with that too, and it's really good for pushing with Veigar and killing people and poking people with auto attacks, which is always fun. A lot of people might think that spell weaving is better, and once again, it's sort of like the armor and magic pen marks against the magic pen marks. Now it depends on what you like. These will actually help you a lot more if you poke consistently with the auto attacks and then finish people off with an additional poke from your Q, and this will build up over time to give you a lot more damage. But this is more for the early game, this is more for poking in lane, and it's not something I personally like to do. Whereas this is a lot more better late game and mid game, and essentially every time in the game except really early game. So for my personal playstyle, I really recommend getting Arcane Blade. It's something I really like having on Veigar. Now let's go on to the utility tree, because I don't have anything on defense. So, movement speed. Once again, Veigar has no escape, he has no real initiate except to stun, so you really want to be able to catch up to people and stun them. You want to be able to run away, you want to be able to dodge skill shots. This helps you even more. If you get boots like I do, your first item, and you have the movement speed runes for Quintessences and these Masteries, you will be pretty freaking fast. So it's a good thing to do. It's always a good thing to have on Veigar. Now I also have the increased mana regen and the increased health regen. Now this helps you sustain in lane, and it's something I recommend having on Veigar as well. You want to sustain in lane and survive until you can Q farm and turn into a late game beast, so this helps you do that a little bit more. These aren't as these aren't as, what should I say, risky as the armor seals, the magic resist. What am I saying? Mana regen seals. I'm sorry, I'm pretty nervous. The mana regen seals, because what else should you take? I mean, you could take the reduced cost time for recalls. Yeah, you could take the cast range for trinkets. Alright, really, this is the only choice in my opinion, and it's something I really recommend you getting. Also, the increased health regen helps you quite a bit. The more mana you stack, especially if you go tier Veigar and you build the arcane staff, sorry. This will help you even more, because it will give you even more health regen, since it stacks from your AP. Mana. Jeez, okay, this is pretty embarrassing. I hope you can follow me, but there you go, okay. So, I also have Alchemist, which increases the duration of potions, and this will help you even more. I usually spam a lot of potions. It's something I recommend you getting, a lot of potions of Veigar. you want to sustain in lane, like I said, and Veigar is very, very squishy. He doesn't have any built-in sustain, so having all these extra tools from Masteries and potions and so on, it really helps you sustain in lane and survive, which is something you really need to do with Veigar before you can turn into an eventual mastermind of evil, or whatever you want to call it. So, a lot of people would also take Culinary Master, and this will essentially give you biscuits, which give you increased mana regen when you use potions. So essentially you have a mana potion on top of your potion, your health potion. This is something that's really, really good on Veigar, and a lot of people do it. Actually, I think most people might do it, but it's not for me. I personally don't like it that much. I find that I usually buy enough mana potions anyway, and personally I really, really prefer getting Runic Affinity, because this gives me increased duration on my blue buff, and I freaking love blue buffs, so there you go. I mean, blue buff, it's just amazing. And yeah, sure, late game, really late game, this doesn't really help me, because really late game I will have full cooldown reduction from runes and masteries as well, my themes. However, early game and mid game is where I really think blue buff is the most important. That's also where you'll be struggling the most with mana, especially on Veigar. Eventually you will have so much mana that your passive, your items, your runes, your masteries, you won't really need this as much, or blue buff as much. And the same way you won't need this as much. These are essentially different ways of getting through the mana problems Veigar has early game. So it really depends on what you prefer getting. If you like to eat biscuits, then I guess you should get Culinary Master. If you prefer having a blue buff of awesomeness, then get the blue buff, because I mean, blue buff is pretty cool, right? So yeah, that's it, I guess. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you found this somewhat useful. If you didn't, let me know. If you did, let me know. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, anything really, just tell me and I'll try to do anything I can, because I really want to make videos you guys enjoy. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.